Hey guys, welcome back to the Poly Podcast. If you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe. Forgive me, I'm a little bit tired. But today in history, couldn't let this one go. Today in history, in 1942, we have the Wannsee Conference, which was the secret conference of the Nazis to discuss the Jewish final solution. For the people who still think that the Holocaust didn't happen, I kind of want to put an orange in a sock and just beat the hell out of you because you're either blissfully ignorant or willingly stupid. This conference was done in the small suburb of Wannsee. If you ever watched the HBO film Conspiracy, great docudrama about this. But what it is as the Germans were expanding, the Nazis believed in something called the Lebensraum, the living space. And as they start spreading into Eastern Europe, more and more Jews are going to be brought into their sphere of influence. So the deportation, the alienation, the Madagascar plan, these things weren't working out. The ghettos weren't working out because they weren't efficient. What's very scary about the German Nazi form of genocide was the speed and efficiency in which they did these things. So at this conference, what they did was they discussed all the different problems that they had. And what they basically did was they streamlined it, where they were going to set up basically two types of camps. Either you were a labor camp, where you're going to be worked to death, or you were too old, too sick, too weak, and too young. That was the other issue, is you'd be set to death camps. And that's, they discussed using different means of execution. They settled on gas because it was cheap and efficient. One of the problems that one of the soldiers talked about was even the most hardcore believer in Nazism and believing in the German Reich, you get through 10, 20, 30 people. Soldiers have a code of honor. Killing women and children just didn't make sense to them. They kind of got numb to it. Plus, again, this is very cold, but the expenditure of manpower and wasted ammunition was one of those things that just didn't make sense to the Germans. They wanted a very efficient way of murdering them, and they did it with machine-like precision, from identifying who they wanted rounded up. Now, at this meeting, they also had to assess out, what do you do with people? First off, they had to come up with a legal framework which they could basically pick, in their words, holy German, holy Jew, meaning, how do you define your enemy? And it's funny because at the conference there were, let's say there were 15 high-ranking German officials. I think 8 or 9 of them were lawyers or had law backgrounds. But how they circumvented even their own laws, because the German blood laws enacted in Nuremberg, not to boo-hoo for the Nazis, but they felt there were too many Jews left in the mix. So basically what they did was they invoked what was called Führer's Principle, Hitler's word above all else. So they basically legally defined who was a Jew, then determining, okay, are they worth work? Or are they just too old, too weak, too sick, too in the way? They're going to the death camps. And it was that speed and efficiency that was really, really tragic. I mean, the loss of life, obviously 5 to 5.5 million Jews and other people being thrown in the mix. Now, ironically, Martin Luther, who's one of the guys who helped create this program, he gets sentenced to one of these camps for conspiring against an officer. And it's because of Martin Luther's little shady behaviors we know about this secret meeting, because he hid his notes. All the notes that they took, they were going to be compiled into a master copy. They were supposed to be read and then destroyed. He kept his. It was discovered by the British and American intelligence. Now, the thing about this time period that we always talk about, if you've ever watched Schindler's List or if you watched any Holocaust movie, the speed, the efficiency, the way in which they went about this extermination program. They were going to, within a matter of a few months, if they had this whole thing rock and roll and fully going, they would have wiped out every Jew in Europe. There are people, some historians, who believe that because of the Nazi fixation of eliminating the Jewish problem, that if the Nazis had just focused on the war things would have turned out differently, because this program took precedent above everything else. Train schedule. So if they had a train that was going to be used to move soldiers to the Eastern Front, if a Nazi officer came along and said, "Hey, we need this train for this," they would always give way to the deportation of Jews. And the other thing that's really interesting is in the language that they used in this meeting. They never said extermination. They always used the word evacuation. So even if somehow this came out in court, they can say, "Oh, no, we just moved them because the death camps weren't in Germany. They were in Poland." So it's like, "Oh, no, we just sent them there. Whatever happened there, you got to talk to the people over there." It's absolutely brutal. And again, those people who think that it didn't happen need a light beating, but that's a story for another day. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you next time for another day in history. And for my new followers, greatly appreciate it. Thanks for coming along on this journey, and I'll catch you down the road.